This was supposed to be a celebration, the last of the so-called great suburban battles. The deeds of yesteryear's legends would be relived. They would then be trashed as these modern-day Blues went on a second-half rampage.
What a leap! Can he jump?
If Friday night's Dons wanted a reminder that their heels were being nipped, they got it.
How do you stop this machine?
That was just ridiculously nonchalant, wasn't it?
And while their club remains exclusive, there was a slight rumble from far away. In front of a few, in unfamiliar and unfriendly territory, the defending champion landed a telling blow of its own. While others battle away for those minor placings, these Roos had that look about them. That very familiar look.
Blakey from 42 metres is bending it back. That's a goal! Johnny Blakey.
That is a terrific...
Hello and welcome to Football Feedback. And yes, beware of the Kangaroos. I think every time I see them play, it just confirms that Wayne Carey is the best footballer in the competition. And what about John Blakey, 34 years of age and playing as well as he ever has? Just terrific. And no doubt Essendon and Carlton and Melbourne and the Kangaroos, there's quite a few of them playing terrific football. Let's introduce the boys on the panel. We're going to have a terrific show tonight. First up, Stan Alves, over 400 games as a player and a coach. Welcome, Stan.
Thank you, Rob, very much. And I thought it was a fantastic effort of yours during the week.
What was that?
Warwick Neville.
Yes.
Down helping those kids out there, and you won the raffle.
I did win the raffle.
First prize was what?
First prize was a live sheep.
Did you bring it back?
No, I didn't tell you that one, Steve. It was a live sheep, and my wife Erin said, well, what are we going to do with the sheep? I said, well, it's certainly not coming home with us.
Well, lucky you're not a New Zealander, but I was in Perth on the weekend and had an opportunity to go down and see the Fremantle Dockers. Fantastic setup they've got down there, and a special guest tonight, Damien Drum. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Damien tonight. Sos, good evening to you, mate. And you've also got a special guest on tonight too.
Yeah, I've got one of my teammates coming in tonight, and Trent Hotton, who's having a fantastic year, and certainly he played 2 or 3 years of suburban footy, but has made his way back to Carlton after being drafted by us at the end of last season. But probably my big highlight of tonight, Stan, is being able to introduce probably the post favourite for the Gold Logie and also autograph giver in Rowan Connolly.
Oh, Rowan.
Yeah, g'day, Sos, how are you? Pleasure to be here. What
Lost
do I
for
owe
words,
that review for? Gee. Yeah, no, it's good to be here. Good weekend of footy, and my side's bowling along nicely, your side's bowling along nicely, and footy's pretty good for us all at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, both clubs have had good wins on the weekend, Rowan, but certainly a lot of people are talking about the clash in a couple of weeks' time.
And thanks for the sincerity of your opening remarks too, always appreciate it.
OK, boys, well, it'll be a great show tonight. As Steve said, Trent Hotton from the Carlton Football Club will be joining us. Damien Drum will cross live to Perth. We'll also go out to Waverley Park and we'll talk to Chris Connolly, who is assistant coach with the Hawks and certainly one in contention for the St Kilda job. But first up, let's have a look at the winners. And the winners from round 18, Essendon, of course, on Friday night. Big winners again. Melbourne by 26 points. Geelong by 7 in a close one over the Crows. Kangaroos by 78 up in Sydney. West Coast by 86. Port Adelaide by 43. Carlton, huge winners over the Maggies. And Hawthorn up in Brisbane by 18.
Well, those significant results have meant the reshaping of the ladder. I think that Geelong and Melbourne, by their wins, have probably now earned a right to be in the finals. Hawks have jumped in, but I think probably the next 5 sides down there would lay claim to the next 3 spots.
Had a look at it today, Stan, for the age tomorrow. I reckon the team in the real hot seat now are the Bulldogs, as well as missing all those key players injured. They've got a tough draw, play both Carlton and Essendon. The way I see it, they could finish as low as 10th the game out.
Well, certainly a lot of coaches are in the hot seat because their teams are vying for a spot in the final 8. We spoke to a lot of the coaches who are in that position. Here are their comments.
It's great. We couldn't have asked for more. I don't think fourth spot can be taken off us.
We're probably still alive in the mix, but it just makes it a bit harder from now on in.
Who knows? We're not 4th yet. You know, we're not 8th. We're hanging in that middle group. We've got a lot of work to do. But I tell you what, 4th's a lot better than 9th.
They're a top 4 team, so 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. I mean, question is probably playing like today, you're not going to compete with the top 4 teams in a final.
It'll be interesting to see over the next 4 weeks who really wants to play and who wants to, finals are still a reality. So we've got a lot to play for, and to play like the way we did today was really disappointing.
Not an issue, to be honest. It's not an issue. I mean, we just need to finish the year in as positive a manner as we can.
Interesting comments there. Mark Thompson says it's exciting. Ken Judd says, well, it's not an issue. So we've got extreme ends of the spectrum there. One team who certainly won't be playing in the finals is Collingwood. And I just wanted to throw this to the panel and say, have we had enough of Collingwood playing in these blockbuster games? Because they've been promoted through the season. They played the Millennium game. They played Anzac Day game. The battle of the last suburban game. It's been pump up, pump up, pump up. But I think that their performances don't justify that.
Well, it's block boredom at the moment, really, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. And look, the point's been made several times in the last few years, and Sauce, you'd probably agree. The Carlton-Collingwood games as spectacles for probably the last decade have been really, really ordinary, and you'd have to say a lot of the reason simply has to be that Carlton's been up for much of that period and Collingwood hasn't been.
And I think Carlton have won 12 of the last 15.
The blockbusters are not because of on-field performance, are they?
No.
The blockbusters are because of their fanatical supporters. That's why, and it's just because we know we'll get an enormous crowd there.
But I mean, I've taken this up at the league before. We're really painting ourselves into a potential corner here by, continuing to stick to this premise that A, B, C and D are the big clubs and the others aren't. And I reckon if they gave the Bulldogs and the Kangaroos and the Hawthorns and the other clubs without those bigger followings, if they'd earned the right to blockbusters by their performances on the ladder, and I think no one could doubt the Kangaroos have earned that right, they should be given the choice games and the choice clubs and the chance to build that support.
Rowan, if we have a look at the Magpies' record this year, their performance against Essendon in the Anzac Day game was quite reasonable. They were up with them till three-quarter time.
Yep.
The game against Carlton at the start of the year, they ended up winning by 73 points. Sure, yesterday's game was a blowout, but their performance in the 2 games this year haven't been that bad.
No, but I think Greg Ball made a pretty good point in the Age today. I mean, if they had played this game at the MCG, I just wonder whether it might have been a bit of an embarrassment. I mean, they didn't even fill Optus Oval, so it's not as though, the whole of Melbourne was clamouring to see it. And I must say, I do like parts of the Footy Show, but I've never heard so much adverse reaction to an episode of the Footy Show as followed that one last week. It was just everyone thought it was Collingwood Carlton crazy.
I think you're probably hitting more on the point that I'd like to raise. Where does Collingwood go from here? I think we've got 2 distinct things. We've got the marketing through their president, and I think he's got a role to do that because they have such an enormous base. But the marketing's now based on hype and hope, and that's not being delivered on field. So where's the balance now? How does the Mick Malthouse sit in this? Because to me, I just get the feeling of things that are going, this is out of character to Mick Malthouse. This is not the Mick Malthouse that we knew.
Well, we saw Mick Malthouse jump out of a Saab at the start of the year, Stan, surrounded by a smoke screen, a Volvo. OK, doesn't matter. But what did matter was it was Mick Malthouse, who I was just amazed that the Mick Malthouse that I've known for a long time doing these promotions. No doubt he had his arm twisted by the club, but I just think that he would feel uneasy with it.
And that's my point. I mean, wouldn't we now be better to come back and realistically speak to the coach about where we're going from here and what do we need to do to support you? Because I think at the end of the day, some of this can actually fly in the face and may be undermining a lot of what Mick Malthouse is trying to do.
Well, I think in a way some of that marketing, promotional stuff is a bit of a smokescreen, isn't it? I mean, it helps them in the sense that it probably deflects some attention away from the poor performances on the field. And look, I made this point today, but Tony Shaw would be feeling pretty OK about himself at the moment, wouldn't he? And look, for all the criticism he copped as a coach, his side's never got taken to the cleaners the way that mob did yesterday.
Stephen, to you, do you still get pumped when you play? Because the Carlton-Collingwood rivalry, and you would have been there when it was really intense, how's that sit with you now?
Oh, yeah, I mean, Carlton and Collingwood, we've always seemed to get very big crowds, but certainly yesterday it was a crowd of only about 30,000. But I was pumped before the game, and I knew the boys were, because there was a huge build-up before the game, and we sort of looked at it, and we knew we had to win the game, but it was almost payback time for us. especially with the result at the start of the year.
Steve, you played on Chris Tarrant, who's been one of Collingwood's better players this year, only 20 years of age, and had a terrific season. How did you find him?
Oh, he's a kid with a lot of ability, Rob. He's very quick, probably one of the quickest players I've played on, along with probably Matthew Richardson. Similar type in terms of very athletic players, and he's a product down there, or a player that Collingwood can really work with in terms of getting their forward line set up right.
What about the other end of the spectrum? The club that does produce on field but can't bring crowds. What about North and the experiment in Sydney? I mean, they've got to be enormously worried about that. Have a look at the shot here. I mean, that is just a disgrace.
9,000, I think, Stan.
Well, there were reports during the week that the Kangaroos remain absolutely committed to the Sydney experiment, and I have to say, I think that's a big mistake.
How much do they get? How much are they guaranteed? There's a rumour going around about 900,000 a year. Is that right?
I couldn't confirm that, Stan, but it obviously had to be underwritten to a significant amount, otherwise they wouldn't have been prepared to take the risk. I was surprised how many people seriously thought that it was a chance of working, to be honest. I mean, there's been plenty of evidence in the last couple of years that the Swans supporters actually waned a bit, you know, let alone sending a second team up there and asking another lot of supporters to get behind them as well. I just think it was too ambitious, and the fact that the AFL has desperately tried to pull out of the Homebush thing confirms that the whole Sydney thing is a lot more precarious than people thought.
The thing that you have to worry about is we've got the Kangaroos, who are a very good side. Wayne Carey is the captain, who's the best player in the competition. They've had 7 home games in Sydney in 2 years, and they've won every game. They can't do any more, and yet they had a crowd of 9,000. This is the second year of a 5-year program. Do you think it will continue?
Well, they seem definite that it will continue. I couldn't see it continuing beyond next year.
There's confirmation of what you said, Rob. Look at that. I mean, 7 games, 7 wins. What more can you do? Look at the average crowd.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, you look at the early years of the Swans, and basically, I mean, they were up there from 82, with the exception of the 86, 87 Edelston boom, which was a very temporary thing. Their average crowds were probably even less than that, 9,000, 10,000. So on that score, maybe it's not that bad, but that's not enough to guarantee your survival at all, is it? I mean, they need big support, they need big crowds, they need big membership. And the irony is, too, that their membership in Victoria now is over or around the 25,000 mark, so it's not minuscule. I just wonder if they had maybe gone the other way and concentrated on building a region of support in Melbourne, maybe that might have been more.
Do we underestimate, Rowan, boys, do we underestimate the parochialism, the anti-Melbourne Sydney situation, where the side's gone up there and they've changed the name to Sydney? They've gone up North Melbourne. I know they've tried to make it Kangaroos, but they're still North Melbourne. They are interlopers. I don't really think they want to embrace them.
I tend to think more from a Sydney perspective, it's more just complete apathy. You know, I'm not sure if Sydney people get that fussed about anything to do with Melbourne, to be honest.
Rowan, in terms of the Swans, though, it took them a number of years before they established themselves and got the support from the Sydney-based supporters.
Yeah, but I mean, as Stan pointed out, at least they were sort of seen to make the gesture of changing their name to Sydney, and Kangaroos, I mean, that's, you know, you've got to have some sort of geographical base, don't you? Otherwise, whose team are you?
We went out to Arden Street. We spoke to Greg Miller, the CEO of the Kangaroos. This is what he had to say on the Kangaroos' future in Sydney.
Have the AFL got the option of pulling out their financial support for you?
Yes, they've got the option. This is the second year of a 5-year agreement. They'll make their mind up based on what's best for football up there. We've handed in our scenario, or about to. And I guess it really is their decision. Certainly on a sponsorship level, it's been very good. This Wednesday we'll be announcing a coaches sponsor, which is again out of the Sydney market. A number of things occurred which have been good for us up there. Look, it's going to take time for to build the crowds. We knew that, and we have to show the market that we'll be consistent and we're in for the long haul.
Greg Miller talking about the coaches' sponsorship in Sydney, something coming from Sydney. I'll throw this one to the panel. Who's the sponsor of the Collingwood coach? Let's see if sponsorship works.
Murphy.
Dan Murphy. Well,
you know why I know that?
You're a drinker.
Yeah, I'm a journo, Rob. You know, it goes with the territory. But also, whenever they play at the MCG, in the Collingwood coaches box, so you get this huge neon Dan Murphy sign at the back. So, like, there was actually one game we filed out after the game, and someone popped their head around and asked for a 6-pack of VB.
So can I just come back to this? Are we saying, therefore, what Greg is saying, that it's more crucial to get sponsors up there than it is to get people initially? Is that stage one?
Well, it has to be, doesn't it?
Because they seem to be happy. I mean, is this no different? I mean, I don't be unfair, but it was common knowledge that Sydney bought crowds. They went out and gave out tickets just to have people in there because they wanted to create. See, they're not going to get people to come when there's empty stands. People will come when there's full stands. That's when people will try and get in. So, but it looks to me as if, obviously it's underwritten by the AFL. I would have thought they're just about the point to pull out, but on what I've heard there tonight, I think they're going to stay there a bit longer. Look,
North has always had a very sort of healthy relationship with the corporate sector, and you'd remember this from the time you played with them. They were probably one of the first clubs to really court corporate support. So they're pretty experienced at that, and they've done it well, and to an extent it's probably helped a really small club stay afloat. So that's probably not that bad a strategy. And also on the Sydney corporate angle too, I remember AFL officials talking about the fact that, you know, a TV rating of something like 10 or 11 in Sydney is worth about 30 in Perth, you know, so you don't have to make that big a dent on the Sydney market to actually have quite a big impact. So you can understand the rationale, but I just don't think it's going to work.
I think they're starting to play some good footy, the Roos, but the Martin Pike one, we need to discuss that because it really concerned me. I thought that, and here we have a look at Martin, I thought that his game just before the suspension against Melbourne, I thought it was probably his best for the season.
It's not a question of his
how many
footy,
strikes
though,
and you're
Stan,
out?
is it?
How many strikes and you're out? I mean,
well, that's three. That's three.
It must be getting close. I know they pride themselves, North, on the ability to be able to bring players within the fold, but at the end of the day, it's not the sort of it's not the message you want to be sending, is it?
It's an interesting one, Stan, because I think Dennis Pagan is one of the most disciplined coaches in the competition. Did you notice up there in that game against Richmond, a couple of the players made blues and they put their hand up? And I thought that was a signal to the coach here. I understand I've made an error. Carey tried a torpedo, went off the side of the boot, straight away put his hand up, acknowledging the coach, and Colbert did the same when he gave away a 50-metre penalty. So they are very strict on getting things done by the team rules. And Martin Pike, I think he's skating on thin ice.
Well, you can understand Dennis Pagan being particularly annoyed with this one, couldn't you? Because, I mean, he single-handedly has revived Pike's career. I mean, Pike went to Fitzroy, they went under, won a best and fairest there, and Brisbane didn't want to touch him, which probably told you something. And, you know, Pagan overlooked other people's misgivings to take him on. It's worked, and he's given Martin Pike a premiership. So it's not a tremendous way of Pike saying thanks, I wouldn't have thought.
No. Here's a chance for you to have a rip because I know you're big on this, the goal umpires, pal. The performance on the goal umpires on the weekend.
Well, there were a couple of shockers, Stan. We're getting one or two a week. Have a look at this one here up in Sydney.
Just about the worst ever, this one.
I think it's the worst ever, Rowan, and I don't say that lightly because everyone knows it's been touched. The players know it's been touched. Andy Callaway is going in to pick the ball up to kick it back into play. He says, what's going on up? That was touched. Of course, Carey tries to con. Field umpire comes in. Seems like he overrules the goal umpire. And it's given a goal. It was unbelievable. We'll see that from a different angle. And the ball was clearly touched. And Carey's having a bit of a giggle about it there, and why wouldn't you? But let's have a close look at this. Ball's kicked in. Touched.
I think
and the next angle is even better, Rowan.
Behind the goals.
Yeah, behind the goals. And I just think this is unforgivable. Look at the flight of the football. Hits hands, changes its trajectory. Goes through an obvious point, but unfortunately, John Cleese, the goal umpire, got it wrong.
Manuel was down the other end, I think. What's interesting, though, Rob, is that I don't know if we can see that shot again, can we? We've already seen it about 4 times. But when they confer, the goal umpire goes back and forth about 3 times. So it's like you have to ask yourself, was the goal umpire aware of the procedure that's supposed to happen? Because there seemed to be an incredible amount of confusion between the goal and field umpire. And reports that I read even this morning still hadn't ascertained. We'll just see it again. Now, watch this. OK, go forward and back a little bit, and then forward, back, and hang on, I'm going to come forward again.
But Rowan, what is he asking? Well, what is he asking the field umpire?
I really don't know, Stan. Do you like my mistake?
He probably doesn't. The goal umpire probably doesn't know whether the ball's being touched or not.
The goal umpire doesn't know.
Well, he's probably missed it, and he's...
But he couldn't miss it.
He was looking right at it.
True.
He's 1 metre away and he's asking a bloke who's had to be Superman.
I have to ask you, Steve.
Let Steve finish.
I'm trying to finish it. So he's gone to the field umpire to confirm whether he knew whether it was a goal or behind.
And he didn't.
He didn't know. So he's given it a goal. But is that the right decision, though?
No,
should he give it a goal or a behind?
I think he should always always ask the fullback because he'll be very honest about it.
Yeah, very true.
Well, there was more than one mess up, Stan. There was a second one, and this involved Tony Modra, and he was having a kick at Colonial Stadium. And Rowan, you were right behind this one.
I was on the boundary, and David Hook's calling for 3RW called it beautifully. He said, I think it got a very thick edge through to about 4th slip. Somehow still got given a goal. I mean, have a look at the deflection on it, will you?
Paul Barnard, he goes up and says, hey, the goalpost's still wobbling.
Have a look at this. Fine edge. It's not actually 4th slip. It's through to the keeper, I think, but it's still a pretty thick deflection.
And let's continue on. There's even a third one. Who'd want to be a goal umpire after we burn them every Monday night? But this one happened over in Adelaide. Roger James, ball looks to be over the line.
Oh, no.
It's punched back by Croft, Bulldogs fullback.
No.
Now, it's either a goal or it's play on.
It's got to be.
Matthew Croft's sitting in the front row of seats when he bloody touched that.
Have we got a response from them? have we got a response from the umpires?
We tried very hard to get a response, Stan, and we finally got one from Jeff Geeshan. And Jeff is the boss of the umpires, and this is what Jeff had to say. Pretty tough day, I think, for Jeff.
Whenever there's humans involved in situations like this, especially when they're not really cut and dried and blatant, you know, it's always going to have problems occur. But, you know, obviously at the end of the year, we want to look at a couple of scenarios that may improve the accuracy there. I guess at the moment we're thinking about using 4 boundary umpires so that in every situation when the ball goes through the goals, we'll have 2 boundary umpires, one on either point post, that will be able to assist the goal umpire, and that'll be good. We think that'll help.
Well, I think that's not a bad compromise to have 4 boundary umpires, Stan.
Yeah,
you don't like that?
Well, no, I don't think it's going to fix those problems. I think in other ways, but if the bloke, honestly, if the bloke's on the line, he's a metre away, he can't see the ball punch through. I reckon we're clutching at straws.
What you have to ask, Stan, is, and this show, as regular viewers will know, has never held back on goal umpiring errors, but I'm sure that until the last 3 or 4 years, we never saw nearly the amount of goal umpiring errors we've seen recently. I mean, that Carey one, have you, in your entire previous career up until the last couple of years, we've never seen mistakes this bad.
I saw one.
Oh, 93 grand final.
Well, but we're being a bit flippant here. But from a player's perspective, it's a tight game. Could cost the game. You playing in the hot seat down there.
It's very frustrating, Stan. I mean, when a decision like that actually occurs, and especially when you're playing on a very good player and you're trying to contain him, and something goes his way in terms of a goal, and his confidence gets up as well. I mean, it's pretty disheartening or disenchanting that you know, something's gone that way, and it's come from an error. And certainly, it's just something that's got to probably be looked at. And I know human error does occur, but it's probably not good enough.
Stan, what about the Saints? Now, they had the win.
I was hoping we were going to get through the night without that.
No, well, they had the win. I must admit, I didn't see the game played in Perth against West Coast Eagles, but got up in the morning and saw that they'd been beaten by, I think it was 86 points. Only kicked 4 goals.
Kicked 4.
One goal after half-time.
Look, I was in Perth during the week, as I mentioned before, and I thought that if the Saints come over anything less than 100% on their game, they're in trouble. Tell you what, if we think sides get a bashing over there they've really been ripping into West Coast. Fraser Gehrig and people like that, they're questioning them. The message we got over there was that Kenny Judge had taken them behind closed doors and nobody was spared. After that, the captain took them away for a session just by the players. They went away and talked about that. They were going to come out absolutely pumped. And if the Saints were on their mettle, and I just think the Saints had spent everything the week before. I don't think they came up with anywhere near the passion that was required, and as a result, what happened? They just got a terrible hiding.
I must admit, I wasn't that surprised by the result, because I reckon if you have a look back at some of those sort of post-sacking results, in fact, it happened with Brisbane after John Northey got sacked. Roger Merritt came on board. They drew the first game, I think beat Geelong down Geelong, and then they got absolutely demolished for the rest of the season. They get up for the one game, and then it all falls apart again.
OK, well, it's time to go to our first break, and this time Bomber coach Kevin Sheedy talking about his terrific team. After the break, out to Waverley, and we'll have a chat with Chris Connolly.
We were over handball tonight. I mean, I want to get the ball down to this bloke and get him as many shots as goals as he can. I mean, he's been a constant top player for us this year, and it's great to see him kick his 9 tonight because and kick really well for goal, because he's the one player that comes up and does extra skills at training to make sure that he does apply himself to rewarding the team for the good effort.
They're a very, very good team, and they kick poorly for goal, and they still handled us pretty well. So it lets us know that we're a way away from competing with the big boys on a genuine basis.
We didn't want to look anywhere past the first bounce today. That's where our focus was. And the way you attacked your first contest has got to be the way you attack your last. And that's the way we approached today's game.
Look, at the end of the day, you can't expect to play 1 hour of footy and win a game. And then when we obviously got into a situation where the chances were there for us to take, we didn't take them.
International one-day cricket on C7 Sports.
Would you believe it?
England.
Oh, what a brilliant catch that is.
The West Indies.
Bowled in. Oh, what a good shot that is.
Zimbabwe.
And it's out.
The experienced England team are desperate for a home series win, but the West Indies and Zimbabwe sides have a point to prove. The Windies take on Zimbabwe Tuesday night on C7 Sport.
Toshiba, the people who developed DVD and invented home theatre, now present their multi-award-winning 43-inch rear projection televisions with pictures that are twice as bright as any other similar-sized TV in the world's slimmest and most elegant cabinet for the biggest and brightest range of rear projection television, including the brilliant new 43-inch. See Toshiba. You're looking at the best.
How does it happen? You're racing a fuse or printing the news, and you strain till you think that you'll burst. You sure got a thirst. A hard-earned thirst needs a big cold beer, and the best cold beer is Victoria Bitter. It can come at any time. You're taking a vow or chasing a cow. Matter of fact, I got it now. Victoria Bitter.
Go Harvey Norman for great electrical specials like these. From Westinghouse, we have this 210-litre Australian-made frost-free fridge for just $575. The German quality of this dishwasher from Miele is $1,299. The large Fisher & Paykel 520-litre family frost-free fridge is $1,396. This Smeg cooking package, finished in stylish stainless steel, is exclusive to Harvey Norman, $23.95. These and many more great electrical specials in our July catalogue. It's out now.
Yeah, Box Hill Hawks.
Steinford's kick to centre half forward. Marking Conklin.
Oh, Clint Bizzle, what a ripper.
Great stuff.
We'll have a shot here. Oh, it's got pretty good distance.
Matty Robben.
Oh, Matty Robben. Spectacular start.
Well, I'm ready for this one. Look at Michael Long and Blake Carousella as they do their bit.
Cleverly tapped on towards Long. Michael Long. Twisting and turning over the top. Finish it off Carousella.
Joy to watch. And smooth as silk, this best of the best segment. Just like this goal from Spider Burton. This goes on.
Made it a little bit tough.
Darren Mead got a chance to go forward on the weekend, and have a look at this grab.
Up to full forward. Mead, big leg.
And what about this bloke? Just doesn't throw himself in enough, I reckon. Aaron Hamill. What a hover.
What a leap. Can he jump?
We're going to finish off with this ripper by Nigel Lappin. Caught in the pocket, he's looking for options. In the finish, he's got to do it himself.
He's got to go by himself. Can he kick it? He can!
Nigel Lappin, he can kick it okay. Terrific player up there with Brisbane. Well, we go out to Waverley now and we join Chris Connolly, assistant coach with the Hawks. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Pleasure, Robert.
Now, it must have been a terrific win up there yesterday against Brisbane.
Yes, it was. It was a win we really needed. It just confirms that a few of the things we've been doing are right. And now that, to have our best win for the year at this time of the year, it's really come at the right time, and hopefully we can build on it.
Chrissy, how much have you been worried about the inconsistency? And I mean, not even from week to week, the inconsistency that we're probably seeing throughout a quarter.
Yeah, it's not so much the inconsistency on the scoreboard, but more the inconsistency probably in the way we've moved the ball, and probably the performance of a few of our key players. We really need a few players to step up into the top echelon of players in the competition. We've really only got Shane, who's, hasn't had the greatest year. but we need the Chicks and Hollands and Harfords and those type to go up a level. And our ball movement, there's been a significant change in the way we've tried to move the ball this season. And at times, you know, we haven't done it well. We've gone a bit too wide. We've certainly overused the ball. I mean, any of the coaches in the competition would clearly see we overuse the ball when we're not playing well.
Chris, you mentioned about players stepping up. One of the players that has stepped up this year is Jonathan Hay. His efforts over the last, basically all season, but especially on the weekend against the Brisbane Forwards was exceptional. You must be delighted the way he's improving.
Yeah, I feel that Jonathan's an underrated player in the competition. We see him as being super important, and we're very lucky to have a player that can play on the best forward for the opposition and win more times than he gets beaten. So him and Trent Crowe are super important for our future.
Well, Chris, we spoke about your inconsistency, but obviously the inconsistency of the side you played on Sunday must have given you reasonable cause for hope. Had a look at their form chart just before the weekend, and it was win-loss, 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 win. I think I might have got one out of sequence there, but it was pretty amazing. Did you guys give yourselves much hope on that basis, that they have been so erratic from week to week?
We probably focused more on what we were doing. We thought if we could move the ball the right way and give our forwards the right opportunities, we thought that we'd have a chance. And fortunately, on the day, that worked out.
You were 450 to win too. Did anyone get a piece of that?
I'm not sure.
Chris, it's half-time out there at Waverley, and of course the Box Hill Hawks, they're playing Richmond. That game will be seen straight after our show tonight. Who's pressing for senior selection out there?
Well, Chris Barlow pulled out. He got flu. He was actually in Brisbane and pulled up ill on the morning of the game, and he's bounced back and had a run tonight and played quite well. David Loates has been at the club for 2 seasons. He's a ruckman. Paul Salmon's moving on next season, and we probably look to give David Loates an opportunity at some stage if he can play consistently. And Joel Smith's been quite good tonight too. Billy Nichols, a young player who's come through from Geelong Falcons, probably would have got an opportunity but had an injury earlier in the year. And, you know, it's those types that are pushing up and putting a bit of pressure on. And I don't think that's a problem at Hawthorn. I think we've got enough talent in the club in terms of filling out a senior team. At Hawthorn, we need players that can win games for us. And we hope that Nick stepped up, Trent, Johnny, those type of guys, and that's when we'll start playing some exciting football and press for the top 4.
Chris, you sound awfully like a person who's ready to coach. Will you throw your hat in the ring for that and kill the job, pal?
Oh, look, I'd love the opportunity to coach a senior AFL club at some stage, Dan, yes.
Mate, I just want to talk also then about the big fish. Now, he's announced his retirement. We saw on the weekend how important he is to you. At times, though, I think it doesn't look good to me when you just got to continue to throw Thompson in the ruck. And now we've heard today that you may be chasing Wren. Is there any substance to that?
Any of the top-line ruckmen in the competition out of contract we'll be looking at. We have recruited. We have 3 ruckmen in the reserves that we've been trying to groom because we knew this situation was going to, rear its head. I think Fish made the right decision. I think it's best for him and the Hawthorn Footy Club, and I'm glad that Fish made the decision midway through the year so people can come and watch a great player finish off his playing days. And I think it'll be super exciting on Saturday night when Essendon and Hawthorn pay Fish a fair bit of respect before the game.
Chris, Nick Holland, I played on him last week, and certainly once again on the weekend he had another fabulous game, taking 18 marks. And certainly probably provided the contest up forward that set up the win for yourselves.
Yes, it's about all our taller players being in sync with each other, and Nick has that great aerobic capacity that he can push up the ground and takes a bit of pressure off Fish so he can drift back and help the taller defenders out. And then we've got our taller players up forward, Barker and Dixon can play tall, and Thompson of course. So when all those guys are in sync together, it really sets up a good framework for our smaller players to work in.
Chris, what about Brett O'Farrell? Chased him hard from Sydney Swans. Is there any reason why he hasn't seemed to have come up?
Well, at that time, there was probably 6 senior ruckmen out of contract, and Brett was the most gettable, and we thought that Brett had some potential. He probably, obviously he hasn't fulfilled the expectations we had or he had for himself up to this point in time. But we're hopeful that with a strong pre-season under his belt and finishing off this year strongly, that he might be one of the guys that steps into Fish's role. But we can't bank just on that situation. We've got to look at all the ruckmen coming out of contract and see if they'll they'll come over. And look, I think with ruckman, I mean, Fish come over at such a late age and was so successful that the guys poking around at, you know, Sean Wren's age can play, you know, terrific footy.
Just diverging a little here, Chris, but we're going to have a look at a couple of incidents from the weekend, one involving Ben Dixon with a fan and one involving St Kilda's Barry Hall over in the west. We'll just see here, copping a nice old mouthful there from... There's a guy with a glass of beer in one hand giving him a thump on the back with the other. I think he's actually a fan, but just want your comments, if you have any, on the Barry Hall one was probably even worse in a way. I mean, you'll see that the Hall and the West Coast player, I think Daniel Metropolis, are running towards the boundary, and basically you'll just see the spectator shove Hall in the chest. And apart from being very stupid, really has the potential to cause some serious problems between players and spectators. Just wondered if you perceive any sort of change in the environment and whether this is becoming a bit of an increasing problem.
Oh, look, I don't know if it's an increasing problem, but the AFL's got to put things in place to take care of these situations, whether it's that type of physical abuse to our players or the drugs that are rearing their head more and more in sport, and particularly internationally. But the mistakes other sports have made internationally, we've got to learn from and put things in place that it doesn't affect our game, and the things that just happen on TV, they're just not on.
Chrissy, just last one here, pal. I want to come back to the coaching side of it. It would appear that you've done your homework, you've done your apprenticeship and you're ready to go. Just another person who was a teammate of yours, Gary Lyon. Gary's being touted as being it. Do you think it is possible for Gary to step straight into a coaching role, or, in your opinion, do you need to go through the process that you've gone through?
I don't think there's different ways to skin a cat. I would suggest that if Gary Lyon was appointed coach of the St Kilda Football Club, he would need a framework set up like Carlton's got at the moment. He'd need a mentor like yourself or Robert Walls giving him strong guidance, and he'd certainly need, you know, some guys who have done a fair apprenticeship in developing younger players under him. So he'd need a very experienced coaching panel, and I think Gary's aware of that. Gary did a lot of homework when he was thinking about coaching. He decided not to coach at this point in time. He's now an assistant coach, so he's probably lent towards having some experience, and you know, he's probably setting himself up.
Very best in your coaching aspirations, and continue on. Enjoy the second half out there at Waverley.
Thanks very much.
Well, there we have Chris Connolly, assistant coach with the Hawks. It's time to go to a break. Neil Danaher talking about his young demons. After the break, Trent Hotton, Carlton half forward.
We've got a lot of young players, and look, as a senior coach, I'm just really happy. We make a few mistakes, there's no doubt about that as young players. Sometimes we lose our poise. But I think with a young team, that comes with the territory, and, you know, they'll get better with that experience.
Oh, well, we're probably not going to make the 8 anyway now. I mean, that's as far as mathematical. But, I mean, they're a top 4 team, so 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th. I mean, the question is probably playing like today, you're not going to compete with the top 4 teams in a final. But I think it showed we're not far off the pace.
Well, I thought it was terrific. Lee Colbert's, you know, 10 possessions. I think he took some 10 marks for the game, or 10 possessions in the second half and 10 marks for the game. I thought Anthony Stevens, 14 possessions in the second half, was a positive too, and he went forward, and they're very important players for us, and we're very pleased the way they went about their footy tonight.
Yeah, I think it's time that we want to find out who wants to stand up for the Richmond Football Club now. Yeah, tonight we didn't stand up for the jumper, which is very disappointing. You know, North Melbourne, quality side. That's why they've won 2 out of the last 4 flags. Just really shows how to play in all facets of the game.
Round 19 in the Coca-Cola AFL Premiership Season 2000. Big leap and mark. Friday night live at 8:30. Adelaide clash with the West Coast. Saturday night live at 7:30. A rampaging Essendon take on Hawthorn. Sunday morning at 9:30. Carlton battle the Bulldogs. Live Sunday at 2. The showdown between St Kilda and Melbourne, with Collingwood and Sydney Sunday night at 7:30. See more footy. See 7 Sport.
At Pizza Haven, we've always been great at making pizza, but our advertising guru said making great pizza is not enough. You've got to tackle the competition head on. Thank goodness we know how to make great pizza.
Thursday night, exclusive coverage of the International Equestrian Season.
yes! He's done it!
The second stage of the Munich Theatre Sport. Thursday night, 9:30 on C7 Sport.
Explore the space you live in.
It's funky, it's fun.
A hot exclusive with Aussie Heath Ledger.
It's not hard to have a presence with Mel Gibson.
Hollywood history up for sale.
Love the poster.
Hats off to 3D fashion and show stealer Angelina Jolie.
Had this like passion.
Plus, reaching for the stars, a quick fashion fix, and the latest in groovy gadgets. Here we go! Space, Wednesday, 7:30 on O.
The new superstar of boxing, Lennox Lewis, now stands tall at the top of the heap, willing to take on all challenges.
I just copped the conquer.
Enter the ring, South African Franz Botha, back up off the canvas after taking Iron Mike to the brink of defeat.
It's Bedlam in the ring!
Lewis versus Botha, the World Heavyweight Championship, live main event pay-per-view this Sunday with a special replay at 9 a.m. Call 1300 300 666. Book now.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robbie, who was that whacker eating the pie?
Well, it was Andy Marr. For everyone at home, you've heard us talk about Andy Marr. He's the producer of our show, absolute fanatical Carlton supporter, and there he was yesterday watching his beloved
It's
Blues.
not humble pie, is it?
No, he's certainly enjoying his football.
It'd be arrogant
humble.
pie.
So I'm
It would
glad.
be arrogant
Excuse me,
pie.
I don't think the word humble was in Andrew Marr's dictionary.
I'm glad everyone could see Andy Marr there. OK, time to introduce our next guest. It's a Carlton player, first-year Carlton player in Trent Hotton. Trent, thanks for joining us. And let me say congratulations on a terrific season of football, both yourself and the team.
Yeah, thanks for that, Wolsey. Yeah, the team's going pretty well at the moment. I suppose I'm pretty happy that I'm getting a kick and getting a game every week.
Well, 3 years out of league football, you started your career at Collingwood, and then 3 years out of it, I guess you thought, well, it's all over for me. Or did you think you might be able to get a second crack at it?
Yeah, I was always hopeful that I was going to get a second crack, but it's probably died away towards the end of last year, and it was only the interest from Carlton during the middle of the year that sort of, lifted my spirits and thought I'd a chance to get another game.
Would it be fair to say, without putting on the spot, it wasn't through talent or ability, because in some games with the Pies you played good football? It's just that you appeared to have lost your way a bit?
Yeah, I think so. I suppose I wasn't enjoying my football that much down there either. Which was pretty important to me that I certainly had a good time and enjoyed what I was doing. But I think I wasn't playing great football at the time either. I think both on and off the field, things weren't going well for me.
To what extent, Trent, when Carlton were talking to you, were you thinking, how am I going to fit into Carlton specifically, or was it just a case of saying, oh, I'll just go wherever I need to go? I mean, did you actually stop and think, well, they've got this big man and this big man, I might find it hard to get a game, or how did you assess their interest?
Yeah, that was, it was pretty important to me. I didn't want to go back and make an attempt at playing league football if I didn't think I could succeed at it. So I had a look at the side, and it was mentioned that they did need an extra forward, which I was quite willing to play up forward, and it's turned out that way, which has been good.
Also, I mean, you played admittedly a high standard of suburban footy last year, but it must be an amazing. We'll just see here, and we can see here Trent playing for East Burwood in the grand final, I think, is it, Trent? Against.
That must be in the semi that week.
Who's the other side, just out of interest?
That's Bayswater.
Okay, but I mean, we'll just see, even from that small bit of footage here, you can tell there's a bit of a difference in standard. How big is the difference, and how hard is it to make the adjustment?
Yeah, it's sort of just a lot quicker, I think, and the skills, of course, are fantastic. And of course, if you get hit playing league footy, you feel it and you know about it, but because everyone's running a lot quicker and a lot harder there, so. It's a step up and something I had to adjust to. Early on, I had the fumbles a little bit, I suppose, for the first 6 weeks or so.
Because of the pace?
Yeah, a little bit of the pace and just feeling comfortable amongst in the team as well, which is an important thing.
Hotch, you had the benefit of playing a few games in our twos last year. Do you think that's helped you in terms of knowing what the club's about and how it functions?
Yeah, I mean, basically they play the same system, the seconds and the seniors, so playing 2 games in reserves and having a little bit of a word to Wayne Britton about that and their method of play was certainly enabled me to step in a little bit easier this year.
Yeah, well, I think there's some evidence of that because you just seem, and I'm watching the game yesterday, there's a confidence about you. Not as if you're a tense player who's out there, has to prove himself. We'll see some shots of you here. You're just a man who feels now comfortable in his surrounds.
Yeah, I suppose, and it's really the team that's enabled me to feel that way. You know, they were fantastic from the moment I walked in the door, really welcomed me into the club. And I suppose until I put a couple of decent performances out in the field, in myself I didn't feel that way, but you know, because of the confidence given to me by the players, it was quicker.
I tell you, you've been given some big jobs too, because at times you had to go in and take the centre bounces and everything, haven't you? How tall actually are you?
Oh, about 6'2".
6'2", yeah. So I mean, but so you've got an exceptional spring.
Yeah, well, it's probably something that's come from a junior career in basketball. I sort of played.
How far did you go in that?
I played probably up until I was 18, 19, and then sort of had to make a decision to play football.
Trent, the Carlton-Collingwood rivalry, obviously, it's always a big deal. And I don't know if you played any games for Collingwood against Carlton, did you? And
yeah, I played a couple. We didn't have a win though. So,
no.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be familiar with the rivalry, but just thinking, pretty lucky to play in a game like this, and we'll just see some figures here. Just an amazing day yesterday, and never thought in a Carlton-Collingwood game you'd see figures like these. It was in 221 games, Carlton's highest ever score against Collingwood, was their greatest winning margin against Collingwood, beating a record that had stood since 1943. It was their best ever third quarter of 11-3, and the biggest turnaround from one game to the next. Of course, Carlton lost the round 3 game by what 73 points, and won yesterday by 111. So a bit of a difference. And how could things have changed to the extent they have in 12 weeks? Not so much you blokes, but Collingwood.
Well,
who wants to take that one up?
Yeah. Pass that one on. Yeah, pass that one, pal. Handball that one.
Come on, Sauce.
15 weeks is a long time, right?
Oh, good one. Just taking each game as it comes.
Yeah. Just good to see you smiling there, though, Trent, and enjoying your football. And no doubt there's a great feeling amongst the Carlton forwards. I watch them very closely. And I admire the way that you all play. I think Adrian Hickmott is playing sensational football. Aaron Hamill's just attacking the ball. Lance Whitnell at 21, well, he just is the coach of the forward line and kicked over 50 goals already this year. Little Lappin comes on and sneaks a couple through. It just seems to blend so very well together.
Yeah, I think everyone's wish to work for each other, I think. It doesn't really matter to us who gets the goals. You know, it's always nice to have a couple next to your name, but as long as the forward line as a unit is contributing to the team's success, that's all we're really asking for.
And Trent, your coach at East Burwood was Alan Richardson, who was a former Collingwood player. He's been captain coach of East Burwood for the last few years. We actually went out there and had a chat to him, and we asked him about you and whether he thought you'd ever get back into AFL football.
We certainly had some problems, I suppose, amongst the group, and as a result, Shorey had asked from the players that, with regards to some curfews, that everyone was fairly disciplined. Also, I think King Street at that time we'd had some trouble spots, and so he was pretty keen for blokes to be getting home on time. Generally, we'd have a meeting on Monday, and it was just an honesty session where we'd have a chat, and blokes would put their hand up, and if they hadn't perhaps fulfilled their end of the bargain, if you like, and more often than not, most of us had probably overstepped the mark to some extent, but had decided that, look, there was no trouble, and you know, things will be okay. Trent always would just, if it was 12:05, if the curfew was 12 o'clock, he would say, "No, look, yeah, I was out from you know, say 12 to 1 and didn't get home quite on time." But yeah, I think it was generally accepted amongst the group. He was a pretty good kid and really good work ethic, but as I said, perhaps a bit too honest for his own good at times.
Too honest for his own good. Give us a response for that one, pal.
Well, probably more too stubborn for my own good. I probably didn't agree with being home by 12 o'clock, so if I was home by 10 past, I'd sort of probably own up to it.
Was that home by 12 o'clock on a Saturday night after a game?
Yes.
Does that rule apply at Carlton now, Steve?
No, not at the moment. We're quite mature down there, right?
I think, personally, I think that's a bit rough, Stan. Like, you've got to let the players have one night of the week.
They must have a life. There's got to be a balance, and I think at the end of the day, they've got to want to play for you, not play in spite of you, and that's one of the things can lead to that.
So Carlton players are just more mature than the rest of the competition, are they?
No, I don't say that, but I actually agree with Rob there that you need some time to yourself, and you know, if the boys go out and mingle, certainly you need that freedom to be able to just go back into society and just be a normal person.
Well, after seeing you, I think the less drinking you do, the better, mate.
I want to turn to you, both of you now. One of the things that has impressed me, and I think David Parkin's talked about this, has been the fact that there may have been better players play for Carlton, but probably not a better team. And on the weekend, I think you continued the trend of an unbelievable pressure. The pressure, the runs to assist, the weight of numbers, and especially up forward. Now, I'd like you just, if you could, to talk us through some of this bits of footage we're now looking at.
Well, obviously, I mean, I think a good side, you tend to work together, and certainly that's something that we're trying to do, that everyone do their little bit each week, and I think our forward line's been probably one of the hardest forward working lines in the league, and with Aaron Hamill up there and Hotton and Witters and all the other guys just generally around the field, it's pretty important that when you're playing that you maintain that pressure, and that's something we really try to work at.
And do you forwards, do you pride yourself in that? Is that something, because people would probably get the impression that if you go out, the forwards going to pride themselves on how many goals they kick.
Yeah, no, sort of we go out as a forward group every week, and as mentioned basically on the way out to every game, let's come off the ground, you know, as we've chased them, we haven't missed one tackle that we're going to go for, or let the pressure come off too easily.
The other thing, of course, boys, has been your sensational starts. I mean, you really set the scene. Have a look at this. Look at this, rounds 14 through to 18. Your scores, they're cumulative 31-17 to 7-3. That is just an absolutely magnificent. Is there a concentration on that, or is that just something, again, that the players have picked up on?
Well, I want to just jump in, if I may, Stan. Why do you start so well when you are one of the very few teams that doesn't go out on the ground for a pre-game warm-up?
Hots.
Jeez. I think it was something we really had to work on. Early in the year, we tended to not get some good starts. I think the first 6 weeks we were sort of level or behind at, you know, quarter time, half times, and we were coming out after half time well. But that certainly changed around recently, but I don't know what to put it down to.
Do you think the warm-up, do coaches really think the warm-up has any impact at all in how quickly they start, though, do you reckon?
I put it this way, if I was coaching now, I would have the team go out for a bit of a warm-up, as most teams do. I think look, rhyme or reason, Essendon do the longest on-ground warm-up of any team in the competition. They are out there for 25 minutes. They've won 18 straight. Carlton don't go out, and they've won 13 straight. Both the teams are up on top of the ladder. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that it's good to get out on the ground just to get a bit of a feel for it. But Carlton have never done it.
Yeah, I think, Rob, you're probably right there that players coming through these days would. I think the progression is that the warm-ups are going to occur on the ground before the game, or 25 minutes before you actually run out onto the ground. But certainly, probably at Carlton at the moment, we've got still quite a number of older blokes that are playing, and their routine over the years has been to do the warm-up in their rooms. So we've tended to stay to that option, that we do our warm-up in the room.
OK, I want everyone at home to have a very close look at this. I just think it's fantastic. Have a look at the scoreline, 174 to 60, so the Blues are just miles in front, and have a look at how ferocious they are with their tackle and their chase and their pressure. We'll just have a look at it. Bang, Freeborn, Franchina, Hickmott, Franchina again, Hickmott, 5 of them on the one Collingwood player. It is just terrific, Stan. Like, you love to see your team get in front. It's a coach's dream, no doubt about that, and that's what David Parkin, I think, has been so impressed with.
Do you think, Rob, it's come from... I mean, you go back to 98, they were down and out halfway through the year, and I should throw this one to you, Sauce, but, I mean, I just wonder if a lot of that real hardness at the ball has been born out of desperation from when they're at the bottom of the pile only 2 years ago. I mean, you've just got to go back to basics, don't you? And I think maybe your side's built up a pretty hard base and then added the component of skill to it later on?
Yeah, probably tend to agree, certainly, and it's probably the age group of players we've got at the moment. Sure, we've got a couple of real young guys in our team, but I think we've got mature bodies out there at the moment, and certainly I think that the Kangaroos over the years have had that mature body out on the ground also, and they've been a physical team, and certainly there are a number of teams that have followed suit now.
I want to have another look at a bit of play, because they don't only do the tough things, do they? They also got absolutely magnificent ball movement. We've got an example of this. Watch Scotty Camperali. Now, I think the important thing is just watch the vision. It's the first and the second thing, just the awareness. Silvani, he knows that Camperali will keep going, and you'll go again, and watch when he ends up with Camperali. You expect when somebody's run this distance, their eyes would light up, and I think everybody at the ground thought he is going to go for goal. Have a look at it, he's going to go for goal, but no, what does he do? Looks inside. Absolutely sensational team play. That is discipline.
And it's also the modern game, Stan, where you run and run and run. He went from the back pocket to the forward pocket. He picked up 3 possessions in the space of about 30 seconds. It was just a wonderful bit of vision to show a young footballer, a 14, 15-year-old lad who wants to play the game.
And I can tell you, it's very difficult to run that distance and hit your target on 3 occasions.
Well, Camperali would set up more goals for Whitnell and yourself, Trent, or any of the forwards than any other player now, wouldn't he? Surely. I think he's the leading inside 50 player in the whole AFL, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, if you say so.
Well, we also saw something in the Carlton-Collingwood game, and Steve Silvani actually told us this. He said this is the first time in over 300 games. Watch Craig Bradley, the skipper, 37 years of age, and he has his first smother of his league career.
Well, how come you know that stat?
He's desperate.
I might just add this. I know there's a bit of flippancy there, but I think the bottom line here is that, and I know we don't want to go too much away from Carlton, but why Carlton is successful is that they bring youngsters in while they've still got experienced players around them. And the things that Bradley did then, coaches can only tell, but players, they pick up on what the senior players do and that leadership. And just if I might throw to this man alongside me, I think he's a classic case, and I don't put you under pressure here, of how we can try and recruit some boys 16, 17 years of age, which is fantastic. Be careful we don't get 4 this year, 4 next year, 4, and think all of a sudden, oh, we're going to get rid of 3, and they're now only 20 years of age and we'll let them go, because we've seen what happens. This boy is probably lost to the football world. He goes out to a 2nd or 3rd tier, but is able to come back with a man's body. And he's also physically and mentally ready to play. And I think he's a classic example of something that we must be very careful we don't lose in our game.
And I think the other thing is, I don't want to embarrass you, Trent, but Trent is a smart footballer. He knows where to position, he knows what's around him, and he's able to use that thinking ability in his games. And too often, we as AFL coaches, we get obsessed with the athlete. And the bloke who can think and play the game and create for his teammates, we just underestimate that too many times, and we look at the bloke who can do the 100 metres in 10 seconds and vertical jump 2.5 metres and all that rubbish.
Yeah.
Go on, Rowan.
It's not exactly rubbish.
Like you.
It probably helps a little bit to be able to do those things, Rob, but I take your point. Now, Trent, I had to bring this up. Dermot Brereton's column in The Age last week about your time at Collingwood. Very, very entertaining read. And interesting little anecdote in which he talked about a club function, and I'm not sure what the time was or what the condition was, but I'm told, or it was reported in The Age, that you'd actually taken a screamer over a certain club official being President Alan McAllister, but I am told there has actually been some erroneous reporting, and it wasn't the president, it was in fact the coach. Can you just enlighten us a little bit on what happened on that occasion?
I'm not too sure what Damien has gone for there. He's, you know, he might have used a few little poetic licences, I suppose, in his writing, but
maybe he wasn't in a good state.
No, maybe his vision was a bit blurred, but I don't recall jumping on Big Al's back at all.
So it was lethal then, right?
Not too sure.
Just let that one go. Yeah. Just keep feeding them this side.
It certainly was a big day out at Carlton yesterday. It was billed as the last game between the suburban rivals, Carlton and Collingwood. They had a huge marquee in the parklands beside the Carlton ground. 1,000 people were invited. It was $275 a head. I walked in there just on lunchtime. I only was there for 5 minutes. I was just amazed at how big it was. And after the game, the people who went there for lunch, then watched the game, they were welcomed back to have drinks after the match. Well, that's when things turned a little bit nasty, because the silly thing was they organised to have the coaches after-game press conference in this marquee. Well, you can imagine there were quite a few people there who'd been having a drink for 5 or 6 hours, and it turned a little bit nasty.
Turn him up so we can hear him.
David.
Now, if you get that kind of cooperation, you'll hear everybody. Just that the lunatics over here can't keep their mouths closed. Nothing to do with what Mick's doing. Thank you very much. He's speaking very nicely.
David.
Well, you go and have your ears cleaned out. Jack Kennedy's over there. He'll clean your ears out for you.
David.
You're going.
I think it's good to see the general football public get a taste of what we go through every week at David Parkin's press conference. No, seriously, he was quite right to say what he said there. Look, just as a member of the media, I don't think that was very satisfactory, and I understand the intent there. I guess they want to give supporters a look at, you know, what happens at all sides of the game, but as a working journalist, I can tell you, and just talking to the people that were there, it was absolutely impossible conditions for the journalists. And really, in the end, who won? I mean, we couldn't ask the questions we wanted to ask. They couldn't give us sufficient answers. The people couldn't hear anyway, and the whole thing was a bit of a farce in the end. So I understand the intent, but I just don't think it worked.
OK, Trent, thanks for joining us tonight, and I'm sure all Carlton supporters out there would love to see you, and all football supporters in general, because yours is a terrific story, and let's hope it continues on.
Thanks a lot, guys.
OK. Time to go to a break. Ken Judge talking about his Eagles win. After that, we'll be back and we'll talk to Damien Drum over in Perth.
I think quite rightly so. A number of people questioned our hardness and our commitment after last week, and I think the players were pretty keen to erase that sort of those sort of questions.
Oh no, look, I'm no more frustrated than what I've been at different stages throughout the course of the last 2 years. But I think that, you know, it's just a matter of being able to obtain a level of consistency in our performances and in our intensity about the way we play. And
it tells me what I was trying to tell you earlier on, that we weren't as bad as people were trying to talk us down. And to the credit of the players and the club, they've kept their belief, and you know, we hope to beat some more.
You know, the back end, having you know, Hunter go out this week and Ellis missing from the back end, and having Southern retire, I mean, it's caught up with us at this point in time. We're just probably down on numbers in the back end for the tools.
From little to big, catch all the action of this year's sports with a new TV from Harvey Norman. This handy Casio 2.3-inch LCD portable TV, great value at $199. For the ultimate in viewing, this feature pack 68cm LG flat-front stereo TV, $1439. Sony gives you the best seat in the house at all this year's sports events with this huge 121cm stereo rear projection TV for $4834.
This is an ad for NRMA Home Insurance. The house we can fix. But the people who live here need more than financial help. So we thought this was a good way to tell you that NRMA provides financial support for the Salvation Army Care Line. The Salvo Care Line is a service for the whole community. And NRMA's help means the line is always open.
New Strepsils Extra with local anaesthetic gently numbs a sore throat, bringing rapid relief.
You can get it dipping. You can get it chipping. You can get it having a row. A hard-earned thirst needs a big cold beer. And the best cold beer is Vic. Victoria Bitter. You can get it lumping. You can get it thumping. You can get it any old how. Matter of fact, I got it now. Victoria Bitter.
Pretty impressed with what Damien Drum and their club have done. They are really building a team to get somewhere in the next year or two. courage and the confidence to play 3 young batsmen in Pavlich and Brown and Grover. So, I mean, it's just terrific to see a coach have that courage to play a team that's kicked over 300 goals and put him in the back line and go for it, you know. So I think that, I see a lot of courage in losses.
Some terrific words there from Kevin Sheedy. Welcome back, and it's with a great deal of pleasure that we cross over to Perth and we talk to Dockers coach Damien Drum. Damien, how are you?
Good, thanks, Robert. Yourself?
Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us, and congratulations, because last year the team got 5 wins. You've already passed that. You're on 7, and still with plenty of football in front of us.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty important that we get another win or 2 just to finish the year off strongly, and a 3 or 4 would be fantastic, but we've got to keep it realistic.
Well, realistic, Damien, what did you set yourself at the start of the season?
I suppose we really thought could be a chance to make the 8, but we sort of kept it pretty quiet and we didn't go around. But I think every team, as you prepare for the year, you realise, unless you're aiming for the 8, well, you're not fair dinkum. So that generally takes 10, sometimes 11 wins, and we set ourselves for that type of scoreline.
Damien, Freo are yet to play in a final series. Do you think the current crop of players that you've got can take you to a final series, say, next season, or do you need to probably pick up another 2 or 3 players to fill in certain gaps in your side?
We probably, we certainly would like to get a couple of ready-made players to help, more so to help the development of the younger blokes. We think the younger ones will eventually get us there, but it might take 2 to 3 years, and we shouldn't have to wait that long. So we desperately need some senior players to help us a bit and speed up the development and speed up the promotion of some of these young blokes into genuine AFL players.
Just quickly on your recruiting too, I mean, obviously the young blokes are the key, but I would have thought the last couple of years you've picked up probably close to the 2 best mature age recruits from other sides around in Modra and now Troy Cook. They've been absolutely sensational for you.
Yeah, I suppose I was lucky that I had the opportunity to work with Troy when I was in Sydney, so I knew what I was getting, and he's been fantastic. Young Troy Longmuir has been good. He's somewhere between a mature player and a youngster, having had 2 years at Melbourne. But certainly Modra has been fantastic as well.
Now, and a couple more names who just keep cropping up all the time in terms of possible recruits next year. Peter Bell and Daniel Chick's another one who seems to be sparking a bit of interest, being a Western Australian, perhaps wanting to return home. Your interest in either or both of those players?
I heard Peter Bell. I didn't hear the second one.
Daniel Chick.
Yeah. Really, you haven't got a chance of getting those sort of guys unless they're extremely keen to come home. The clubs that they're with are obviously going to be fighting very strong to keep them, and if they decide that they want to come home, then we'll be offering extremely fair trades to the clubs to try and tempt the clubs to do the deal. But so much depends on the players' willingness and desire to come home.
You got a pretty good idea where you're at last Friday night in terms of the trendsetter in the comp, Damien. How did you assess the Bombers?
You want me to assess the Bombers?
Yeah, assess the Bombers and your boys where they're at.
Yeah. I just think they're the most outstanding team I've ever been compared against or had to compete against. We played against when I was with Geelong, we played against the great teams of 84, 85. And you would have a great crack against them and they'd still get over the top of you. And this team reminds me of that. They are, in some ways, not invincible, but they just are not only talented players, they work very well as a team. They run well. The outside players have a tremendous confidence on the inside players to keep the ball going, and the forwards have tremendous confidence to the midfield delivery. The defenders and the midfield play, get back into defence. They are working very well as a team, and it gels very, very well.
What about from set plays and sort of like dead ball situations? I think you would have given yourself a chance, because I think you've been very good in that area this year.
The set plays?
Yes. Centre bounces and ball-ins and things like that I'm getting at.
Yeah, they certainly got us. They certainly got us on Friday night in relation to the centre bounces. Not only did they beat us, but they actually got some real quality out of there. They made us struggle with their kick-ins. They set up very good zones, and they were always extremely dangerous around boundary throw-ins. So I suppose in the three main areas of set plays, they were very, very good.
And Scotty Lucas, Damien, I mean, caused you all sorts of problems, really. He's really worked hard on his marking this year and seems to be grabbing a bit better, but what were your thoughts on his game? Obviously a real headache for you.
Yeah, we were quite critical of Daniel Bandy, I suppose, just be giving him too much latitude.
Yep.
And while Daniel was giving us tremendous drive in his own right, we just thought that early in the game Daniel probably had to play him a bit tighter. And that hurt us, and especially when sometimes on the end of Daniel's good work, someone else would turn the ball over, and all of a sudden he would get hurt by maybe not reacting as quickly as he had, or as quickly as he could, to the turnover.
Damien, I've got to ask you about three youngsters that you had playing in your back half, in particular Lee Brown, Anthony Grover and also Matthew Pavlich, who's also played up forward. But certainly they're three players that that you went with on the weekend. But there seems to be a bright light there that you're bringing these kids on, and certainly is a foundation there for your back half.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly had a pretty tough time on Friday night because we would have liked to have gotten Brown off Lloyd. We were trying to get Bandy off Lucas, and even Anthony Jones wasn't going very well on Carousella. Grover was making a few blues, and we were trying to move it around and get better matchups. But the Essendon strength just goes from one bloke to the next, and we felt had our hands tied a little bit. But in being critical of ourselves, I think we should have done more than what we did, even if it's just changing our matchups. But having worked all week on trying to get the right ones, we're a bit loath to move in the heat of the game, but maybe we should have done it a bit earlier.
Damien, just on Lee Brown, how do you get a kid like that up after he's played on the best full forward in the competition? Certainly his confidence would have been dented a bit, but personally myself, I was just actually quite staggered in terms of that he continued to do the team things. He could have sat back on Lloyd, but he continued to do the team things, but he got hurt on a number of occasions. But how do you get a young kid back up on track for the following week?
Yeah, he's a great kid. He doesn't, I mean, we're very protective of him. I would never let Lee feel any of the pressure, or never proportion any of the blame towards Lee. He understands he's doing jobs that he shouldn't have to do. And as part of the development with this club, we've got to make sure that we protect him from that type of pressure and that type of the hurt that would normally be associated with having 9 kicked on you. So we try and take the pressure way off that boy and understand that we get 30, 40 games into him, it'll be a different story. And same with Grover, and the same with Pavlich, wherever we play him.
Would he get a lesser role this week?
I beg your pardon?
Would he get a lesser role this week?
I would think so. Again, the uncertainty in relation to Shane Parker means we may have to keep persisting, but we can always swap it around, maybe give Bandy a stronger role, maybe give Matthew Pavlich the key role, but Lee just handles it very, very well. He understands, he gives it his best. Interestingly, after he had those 7 kicked on him and we finally took him off Lloyd, he got about 6 or 7 possessions just by continuing to run offensively for us, and did a pretty good job.
Yeah, just what it's worth, I think he's very impressive.
Damien, you mentioned Essendon before and how impressive they were against you on Friday night. You played Carlton quite recently too, and they were extremely impressive the day they played you as well. You don't have to play either again, so you've got nothing to lose on that score. I just wondered if you could tell us how, not who's better, although that would help, but also how different they are to play against. I mean, you talked about Essendon's awesomeness. Carlton are awesome too. How are they awesome? How different are the two sides?
It's interesting, when we played Carlton, we were playing pretty good footy, and we were playing very good on the inside, and we're controlling the contests and good around the packs. Carlton, so we went out and played Carlton, and we played pretty well, and they smacked us around the contest. They were just that hard, and they controlled that contest area. And we came away thinking, well, we've played as good and as tough and as hard as we can, and they still 60-something points, 68 I think. And so we thought we came away from the Carlton game thinking that they had this midfield dominance, and obviously Kouta was in the peak of his form. The Essendon games were played, we've felt as though it's been really strong and solid around the contest, but on the outside, their skill level has the ability to hurt us a lot more than possibly Carlton did.
Who do you see having the edge between those two, based on what you've seen?
I think Essendon have a decided edge.
Right. Now, just another one. We spoke to you earlier this year, and you know, you'd had a bit of trouble with the local media over there. Just wondered whether things had settled down at all since you'd got a few more wins under your belt.
Yeah, it's been. It's amazing, I suppose. Over here, you're either a hero or a villain, and I suppose at the moment, with the wins and the development of the younger players probably coming along quicker than anticipated, everyone seems to think you're the flavour of the month, and there's always pressure to keep winning more and more games, but at least it's very, very clear now that we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Damien, just a question. Young Hazelby, he certainly got knocked around a bit on Friday night. Dean Solomon hit him with a terrific bump, but I thought the best of all was Adrian Fletcher's headbutt to the groin. Now, have you showed that in the highlights tape?
The players had their day off today, so we'll give them the highlights tomorrow. But
low lights.
He copped the beauty. He copped the beauty against Geelong as well.
Well, the thing about him, I reckon, tell us a bit about young Hazelby, because I saw him play when you took on Geelong a couple of weeks ago, and I thought he was terrific. I know he's played better than that, but just how good is he?
It's sort of, it's hard to sort of to put into a category. He has this ability. He's a natural footballer, I think is the best way to describe him. He's a very natural footballer. He's not overly quick, but he's certainly not slow. He's got good, adequate pace. He's a good kick, but he's not a great kick. But he has great hands. He's a one-grab player, and as you'd know, there's not many good players out there that fumble the ball. And this kid is very, very clean. He has good decision-making, and is probably one of the attributes that I think is really going to hold him in good stead is that he's tough, genuinely tough. And he doesn't show his toughness at the opposition. He just shows his toughness at the ball, and he gets hit. And he gets up all the time and doesn't even look to remonstrate. He simply shakes it out and gets on with it, and he's generally tough.
Damien, you're, how many games do you coach now?
I'm nearing the second year, so in about 40.
About 40? Okay, how many wins in that, pal?
5 and now 7, 12.
Okay, Kay Sheedy is 300th. Is that in your sights?
What was the question?
Kevin Sheedy's 300th win, is that in your sights? Now, it's not being silly, but I think from a coach's perspective, do you aspire to that sort of thing?
The thing is, as that I look at it, is that there aren't many coaches that have had the opportunity, especially at a young age, to go into a club and rebuild, and to recruit and to actually, well, to rebuild, and then have actually been able to survive and hang around and reap the fruits of that rebuilding. And that's what I definitely want to do. I reckon I've gone down one track, and to me it would just be fantastic if I was able to get the success that then, and keep building the club and making it stronger and stronger, get to the extent where we become genuine finalists every year. And the one word associated with Fremantle in our backroom planning has been sustainable success, always sustainable. We don't want to just get there with a bunch of 30-year-olds. We want to get there in a sustainable fashion. So if it works, what we're doing at Fremantle, that we feel as though it will work for a long time. And that's my aim, I suppose, is to reap the reward of the work we've done.
Damien, thanks for joining us. I've got no doubt you're on the right track, and we wish you continued success. Hope you can get a few wins before the season's over.
Listen, it's always a pleasure to talk to true footy people and good footy people. So all the best, and I wish I could get your show over here.
Thanks, Damien. We'll get Andy Marr to send a copy over to you. We appreciate that very much. Well, there you have it from Damien Drum. It's time to go to another break. This time, Carlton coach David Parkin, who's just so proud of his Blues.
I've been a part of lots of Carlton teams who have got that kind of scoreboard difference and have started to play around with the ball and try and show that we're a bit special and a bit different, and I think from a coaching panel's point of view, we're very pleased they just continued to work at their game plan.
Really, by Anthony being offered, exposed Josh more the fact that he's a boy playing his 17th game or 17th game, and as the season's worn on, he's got tighter and tighter. So, you know, it's a lesson for him, but more a lesson for us to, you know, I suppose during the course of the year we should have been giving him a bigger break.
In the last quarter, personally, I found it hard because we'd worked so hard to get a good lead, and you know, you lose your. I lost my concentration a little bit because, you know, you feel you deserve to win because you've worked so hard, and then you think, oh, we, you know, can't lose this game, and then you lose sight of what you're actually there for.
What happens out there is a combination of a whole lot of things. I guess those indefinable things that happen in the build-up, or part of individual players and collective teams' mental states, but they're very difficult to put your finger on. In retrospect, you look back and said, well, the opposition did it better than we did.
One goal.
He's going to win gold for Australia. Oh, this is fantastic from the Australians. They've kicked away at the time. Johnson steaming away. This is rare goal. The best kind of goal. Can Freeman lift? She is lifting. It's been a mighty race. A colossus as big as has ever been.
To subscribe to C7's non-stop Olympic coverage, call now.
At Pizza Haven, we've always been great at making pizza, but our advertising guru said making great pizza is not enough. You've got to tackle the competition head on. Thank goodness we know how to make great pizza.
Monday Night Football. When Victoria was the core of Aussie rules, on the fields where football legends were made, Richmond clash with the Box Hill Hawks. Tonight at 9 in the VFL on C7 Sport.
You've got that something extra, TV with a bite, movies with a little bit extra, you're really quite a sight. You give me no excuses when you leave my world behind. Explode my inhibitions, I feel my senses all unwind. I'm lost in your embrace. You're my movie extra, so much more than a pretty face. Give me more than just a taste. You're my movie extra, my perfect movie
Well, there's no doubt the Bombers supporters, they're happy, and why not, because they've got a terrific team to follow. Interesting, Stan, Damien Drum talking about the Bombers and Carlton. You just got the feeling that he thought that Essendon had superior skill.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? You should have seen the hairs bristling on the back of somebody to the right of me. It was,
Stan, we shouldn't forget about one side in North Melbourne.
No, that's right.
They're in pretty good form at the moment. Got a couple of players to come back into their side, and their performance on the weekend.
The bloke we're having a look at now was pretty good, wasn't he?
And not unimportantly, Sauce, you will be playing them in the first qualifying final.
Yes.
Let's have a look at Johnny Blakey, though. Let's not go forward. Look, he kicked 4 goals, Rob, the other night, but I think we were really impressed by the hard stuff John Blakey does.
Second oldest player in the competition after Craig Bradley, 34 years of age, and just presents himself so well.
Well, you coached him in 1985. It shows how long he's been around, and that sort of level of determination, I mean, you know, it does make you feel like saying if only certain tennis players like Mark Philippoussis could show that sort of dedication for their country.
Bit unkind, Rowan. Dennis Pagan, who I think is a terrific coach, and he certainly knows that you need good role models, and he's got one in John Blakey. This is what he had to say about him.
If Johnny wasn't married, I'd be taking him around my place for tea and asking him to take my daughter out.
Well, I tell you what, Dennis, I don't know about that one, Dan. Did you hear what he said?
Fair rap.
Yes.
That was a fair rap, wasn't it?
Yes, and...
Take your daughter
Actually, I've got a question to throw to you, Stan. Now,
yeah, what?
When you're a coach, I just thought of it then. When I coached my daughter, she went out with one or two league footballers, and they never came to the front door. They would park the car out the front, and she would walk out to the car. That turned me off them immediately.
Well, no wonder.
Did that happen to you?
No, but the thing Sauce told me about you,
I wouldn't have gone
he was a shocker.
Dad, did you guys go out and check whether they didn't have the fluffy dice hanging off the rearview mirror or something, did you?
I want to ask you something. What do you think about this? As a coach, what do you think about this? Shane Woden.
Yes.
What about his performance to go for the ball? Have a look at this. Young James McDonald's having a good day. Bad luck, son. Get out of the way. It's mine. He's pushed his own teammate out of the way, Rob.
Well, he's one of my favourite players, Shane Woden, and he is that hungry for the footy. You're right, Stan. Have a look at it here. James McDonald, 23.
He should have got in the back.
He should have got in the back. That is unbelievable. Ever happened to you, Steve?
They're pretty hungry, those on balls. Craig Bradley's done that to me a few times. Kicking the ball in from full-back, he pushes me aside, but... yeah, they're quite ferocious sometimes.
Well, down at Shell Stadium, Geelong, Brad Scholl, well, his game came to a very sudden halt, and you'll see what happened. He's chasing the football, he's tapping it through for a behind, he does everything right, and he got absolutely buried.
Oh.
And it's worse than you think.
I think it's worse than this angle, isn't it?
Well, you know what they say about, you know... Oh. He is a bit of a hayseed, and
he's got after grass in his mouth. Oh,
sorry.
He pulled up. I think the most important thing, he did pull up all right out of there.
Well, they got that sort of desperation, got them over the line. They're under the pump, the Cats, Stan, because Sammy Newman's comments certainly wound them up, I thought.
Yeah, look, Sam, I think you need to watch more than about 3 minutes of the game before you start telling everybody what happened.
I haven't seen too many Carlton defenders lying on the ground with grass hanging out of there.
How'd the umpire miss this? Have a look at this.
There's the Crow throw, and the umpire saw it. And Goodwin, he throws it out, free kick. Have a look at this one.
Sanderson? Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, that's right, Stan, come on.
That is a throw. The umpire's 5 metres away. The umpire doesn't pay it. It was umpire Mark Nash, and I think that's the home crowd factor.
No, he thought he was at Colonial at the Rugby International.
Yeah, well, maybe
I think he did. I think he's got his...
Grand final umpire too, Mark Nash.
Yeah, it was a bad miss. Well, this is what's coming up on C7. And you can see that the VFL, straight after our show, Richmond take on the Box Hill Hawks, and 7:30 on Thursday night, Footy Focus, hosted by Peter Donegan, and with the boys, Dakes, Halves and Crackers. And also the games for next week, round 19.
And some biggies, Rob.
My word, a couple of big ones there on the Friday night stand. Geelong and Kangaroos at Colonial. Adelaide take on West Coast. 2 on the Saturday. Carlton take on the Bulldogs at Optus. Essendon take on Hawthorn. And 4 games there on the Sunday. So an exciting round of football as we get teams battling to make that final 8 position. Time to say goodnight. I've got a quick cheerio to our good friend Patrick Smith. Patrick, who's over there in London, he's just watched Wimbledon. And now he's got the golf. He's got a pretty good life, our Patrick.
Cheerio to your friends at Warwick and the Beyond. Bah.
You've never got any.
Can I say the Bulldog, our property steward at Carlton, he watches the show.
Oh, that's a good one. And I'd like to say cheerio to Jackie, mad fan of football feedback, so can't say good day at the footy on Friday night. So good day, Jackie. Thanks for watching. Keep watching.
And I'd also like to send another cheerio, and that's to my sister's friends up at Omeo. She was skiing through the week. We've only got about 12 viewers, Stan, so we want to give them all a bit of a pump.
Auntie Pat.
And she said she had a great time up in the snow. They said they watch us every Monday night. So to the Omeo boys, good on you. Time to go. Thanks for joining us.
This has been a C7 Sport production.
Football Feedback, proudly brought to you by the Alfa Romeo 166.